Good morning. My name is Marco Tapia. I am from the FAMS Washington field office and current FAMS advisor to the administrator. So you may have noticed the photos of the American flag during TSA's portion of the DHS 9/11 flag tour. As you know, today marks 21 years since the horrific and devastating attacks against our homeland on September 11th. Gabrielle Connor Finley. Gabrielle Connor Finley, joining us from Newark Liberty International Airport, New Jersey.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Right shoulder, hump. Ready, cut. Colors post, hump. Post, color. Ready, up. Colors turn, hump. Left, 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 right. Left, 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 right. Left, 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 right. Left, 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 right.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome TSA's senior official performing the duties of Deputy Administrator Stacy Fitzmaurice.
Good morning. Thank you for being with us this morning as we take the opportunity to pause and reflect on the tragedy that occurred nearly 21 years ago. I want to thank the TSA Dulles International Airport Honor Guard for the presentation of the colors, and Newark TSO Gabby Connor Findley for the beautiful rendition of the national anthem. Today, we move one more year away from the September 11th attacks that devastated our nation. But our remembrance of the victims remains and keeps us focused on our mission. The events of that day led us to being here with careers dedicated to protecting the nation. I am incredibly proud to serve alongside the dedicated TSA workforce. You have chosen a path that is not easy. The most important missions never are, and you all do it with honor. Your work helps us shield our transportation system and protect our nation. Today, we recommit ourselves to our mission. We solemnly declare, not on my watch. We will ensure it never happens again. And now, I would like to invite you all to take a moment to reflect on the events of September 11th, 2001. We commemorate and honor those who fell and those who have since given their lives in the hope of a safer and more secure nation. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
I came once at the 10-year anniversary. I read the names, and then that was it. I have kids now. My dad would have been a grandfather. It brings up a lot of different emotions being here and trying to remember his sacrifice and his memory. So my dad, he sent two guys one way to go get gear and to get orders, and he stayed with the command post in the North Tower. Him and his friend Dennis, they didn't make it, but the other two who got sent out, they did. You know, how random, life is kind of deal, On September 11th, I was 14 years old, and it was my second full day of my freshman year of high school. I was in math class during that time, trying to understand algebra. Around the time of the first plane crash, around 8:45, maybe even after 9 o'clock, our principal got on the speaker system and announced that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. We didn't know what to believe. When they did announce that one of the towers had fallen, the South Tower at that point, then that's when everything changed. This wasn't just a plane hitting a building with a fire and an accident. This was something far, far worse. He had seen me out the door to go to school that day. Him and a bunch of his firefighters were getting their physicals, and they weren't working today. Getting the notification that there was an event going on at the World Trade Center, him and his guys grabbed fire department bunker gear, firefighter equipment from the local firehouse. They jumped in the back of this guy's SUV, drove across the Brooklyn Bridge down to Ground Zero, and they proceeded to conduct FDNY operations.
He was a step-up guy. Anytime somebody needed help or to organize something, he was willing to step up. He was always willing to take the chance.
I got a ride home, and as soon as I walked into the house, I saw one of the most depressing scenes in my life. Not only the first time seeing the footage in the corner of the TV of the plane hitting the South Tower and then the towers collapsing, but my mother lying on the couch just catatonic crying because she knew that her husband would be down there because that was his job and that was his passion.
Everybody went to church. Like, the pastor didn't call, people didn't call, we just went to church and prayed.
So I started calling different hospitals, seeing if he was maybe badly injured and they didn't have his identification or what. I didn't lose hope for the first few days, but after maybe about a week, you kind of knew the writing was on the wall. He was found in a stairwell that had collapsed with one of his firefighters from his firehouse and a bunch of civilians. Small mercy that we were able to get his body relatively intact and be able to bury it. But losing that so traumatically really changed kind of who I was and where I was going. I will have to say I did not have the best freshman year of high school. Everybody takes a different path to recovery, and I started off on the wrong path, and it would take me a long time to get to the right path. Like really embracing the character, the spirit of Malloy really changed, my outlook on life. And without the people, the teachers, my friends here, I don't know who I would be today or if I would be here today. So I knew I wanted to serve in some aspect, and I thought the compromise be in federal law enforcement. When I went off to college, I got focused a little bit more, and then when I graduated, I started looking for jobs in law enforcement. What TSA's mission truly does is to protect transportation security, right? So if they fail, 9/11 could happen again. So they're on the front line of defense to prevent 9/11. And we like to say the Air Marshal Program is the last line of defense. So if all the systems before then fail, we're the ones to stop the next hijacking. So I was like, yes, that's exactly how I want to be. Because really what I want to do is to prevent what happened to me to happen to somebody else.
So while we have new hires that are coming on that did not live those experiences firsthand, or at least remember them, he will be that reminder for them that no matter what it is we become as an agency, this will be our legacy, so to speak. It's the framework of what we are.
Sometimes it's hard to look at a bright blue sky over New York with no clouds and not think of 9/11, because that's what the day was. With this event, yes, 2,983 people's lives were, families were touched, but the whole community of New York was touched and the whole region was touched. So even if they didn't suffer the losses I did, they have that reflective moment of we lost something. When we lose a loved one, that memory stays with us and our families for as long as we're alive. As long as this museum is open, almost forever, like the people will understand like the memories of my father and everyone else lost that day. So like their stories won't be forgotten. Their memory will go on with all the people here today from all around the world. So people hear their stories, who they were, how my dad was as a man, not just as a name. My name is Chris Waters. I'm a senior federal air marshal representing the Office of Law Enforcement, Transportation Security Administration, and I'm out of the New York field office.
It is now my pleasure to welcome to the podium Acting Administrator David Pekoske, who will provide today's keynote remarks.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many people here at TSA headquarters, and I know there's thousands of people online watching this event, which every year is, in my opinion, the most important event that we conduct in TSA. And the faces of TSA that we just saw, incredibly powerful video. Senior FAM Chris Waters, thank you for sharing your story. Our condolences continue to go to you and your family. Please convey to your mom, Janice, our thoughts and prayers for her as well. And Stephanie Metzger, who is our FAMSAC at the New York field office, a terrific leader And she's absolutely right. I mean, these stories are incredibly powerful. I had the privilege of sitting in front so I could see all your faces as you're watching that video. I had a preview of it yesterday, and just seeing how that impacts us and really causes us to, one, empathize with those that were so deeply impacted, 3,000 people and their families. In terms of our commitment to mission, it just reinforces that. The other thing I would emphasize to everyone here, if you haven't had the opportunity to go up to the 9/11 Museum in New York at the World Trade Center site, it's incredibly powerful, very, very moving. And I would just encourage you to do that. It will give you a renewed sense of why the work that we do is so critically important for our country. And when I say our country, I mean, our country is a thing. I'm thinking of the 380 million people that live in this country, and that doesn't count the thousands and thousands of people that visit our country every single day. So please give that some thought. The other thing I think is important at the outset here is to recognize our multimedia team. I mean, they put this together. Bruce Milton, who was the voice having us sit down, was up in New York filming that, and Austin Linstooth, who is relatively new to our team, but they do a fabulous job, and we are trying to tell these stories and to humanize the work that we do, to provide that emotional connection, which is so critically important to all of us. The other thing I think is important to reflect on today is Queen Elizabeth II passed away yesterday. The United Kingdom is one of our key partners in the counterterrorism efforts, and so just think of her and all of our colleagues in the United Kingdom as we go forward today. I appreciate the introduction, Marco, and I'm really glad to commemorate the almost 21st anniversary of 9/11, which occurs on Sunday, and really to thank Gabby. Stacy mentioned how incredible Gabby's performance was with the national anthem. Whenever I hear one of our employees, whether it's a TSO or a federal air marshal or one of our employees that works in many of the other functions within TSA, display talents that are just incredible and really adds an awful lot to our ceremony. So thank you, Gabby, for doing that, and to the Dulles Honor Guard and to all our uniformed officers that are here from the Washington, D.C. Airports. And Gabby, you represent Newark Airport. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate the work that you perform each and every day. And as Chris Waters mentioned, I mean, we have a multi-layered security system on purpose. And you are one of the very last layers in that system. And just think about that, every passenger, every day, in the critically important work that you do. Nothing makes me prouder, candidly, than our committed workforce. And if you watched my confirmation hearings before the Senate, one of the questions that's always asked is, why do you want this job? And I want this job because of you, because I think you're just an incredible group of individuals that does the work of this country in such a noble way. And so I just thank you for being here, and thank you for the work that you do. I also want to thank Marco Tapia, who is our brand new uniformed advisor, just a couple of months into the job, for agreeing to serve as our MC. It's always kind of an interesting conversation when we start to plan the ceremony and we say, who's going to be the MC? And Marco raised his hand, and I think he's done a great job. But Marco's journey from 9/11 to today is not only a great story, but a reminder of how he, like so many of us, felt a strong calling to serve our country as part of TSA, and a steadfast determination to prevent terrorist attacks on our transportation system. As Chris Waters so well stated, I mean, we are here to protect our transportation system. We are here certainly to prevent another 9/11-like attack, but we are also here to prevent any terrorist attack on our transportation system, which includes aviation and surface transportation. On 9/11, Marco was serving in the Army as at the Tactical Leadership Branch instructor at Fort Benning, Georgia, training lieutenants, many of whom were destined for Afghanistan after graduation. With the creation of TSA, Marco sought out and joined as a supervisory transportation security screener in the Quad Cities International Airport. Now, Quad Cities International is an airport that is west of Chicago, right on the border with Iowa. He served there after his honorable discharge from the Army, and then in 2009, he joined the TSA law enforcement team as a federal air marshal and has served in several roles which ultimately led him to serve as my FAM's advisor. Marco's trajectory at TSA illustrates a direct line from that tragic day to where we are today. In the years since our founding, many roles may have changed, but our mission has not. We continue to protect the American people and the nation's transportation system. Every year, we move further and further away in time from that fateful day. And if you think about the inscription that was on the wall in the museum that you saw in that video, every day the memories need to be reinforced. And I would just, like I said at the very beginning, ask us all to think about that. Because there may come a day when it fades from memory as generations move forward. But here in TSA, we will do everything we can to make sure it doesn't fade from memory. We're not trying to relive the past. We're trying to honor the past and learn from the past and make the future ever brighter. Each of us has someone connecting us to 9/11, the fears, the sorrow, the dangers. And it was President John F. Kennedy who said, "We are not here to curse the darkness, but to light the candle that can guide us through that darkness to a safe and sane future." Each of you create the light that guides and protects people on their journeys. Day in and day out, our TSA workforce, just like members of the U.S. Armed Forces, members of law enforcement, and first responders, and so many others carry out that charge. The uniforms may be different, the specific responsibilities are different, but together we're protecting the nation in the memory of that day. As you saw in the flag tour presentation, which I'll talk about a little bit more fully in a second, but just a great way to take a flag that was presented to Secretary Mayorkas up at the World Trade Center site and bring it around to sites that were meaningful with respect to 9/11 in particular for TSA. And the process in the department was to take that flag, turn it over to the custody of each one of the components for about a month, and then have the components display that throughout their organization. If you go on our iShare site, you can just click through the various photos that you've seen rolling through this morning. And it really shows that we brought it around to a lot of places in TSA, incredibly representative of our strong connection to 9/11. It was in London, England, as I mentioned, with Queen Elizabeth II's passing yesterday, in Frankfurt, Germany, so internationally, because we have a relatively substantial international presence and certainly a significant international interest. It was at each one of the 9/11 airports, so Portland, Maine, Boston, Massachusetts, Washington, Dulles, and Newark Liberty Airport in New Jersey. The flag was an incredible reminder of our security impact across the globe. And when you think across the globe and just across this country, in addition to aviation, we flew that flag at surface transportation systems, because that's an incredibly important part of our mission set. And then if you look at the foundation of our organization, and when people first come into TSA or they're on their career journey, where do we bring them to learn more and to develop more skills, both in their technical capability and also in their leadership capability? So it flew at the TSA Academy at Glencoe, Georgia, and at the FAMS Training Center up in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and also at our Canine Training Center down in San Antonio, Texas. That flag is a symbol of why we're here and why we work so hard to protect our country. On this day, we pause to remember the events of 9/11 and those we lost. We remember and we will never forget the nearly 3,000 lives taken from us, including 184 men and women whose lives were taken not far from here at the Pentagon. And I was thinking and talking to Stacy as we were beginning this ceremony. I drove right by our old headquarters 2 days ago. I had a meeting up in Washington, and I happened to be, going up the highway where there were no cars in the lanes beside me, and I could just glance down and see the site where we used to conduct this ceremony at our Pentagon City headquarters, very close to the Pentagon. And we carry on that tradition. Like I said at the beginning, this is one of the most important things that we do as an agency. And it was just kind of a very nice, poignant reminder, because the last ceremony there was in 2020, right smack in the middle of the pandemic. So I just thought that was an interesting juxtaposition for the ceremony that we're having here today. We remember and we'll never forget the 3,000 lives, as I said, and they were young and old, and they were from all walks of life, but they were denied the life that they deserved, and we will remember them. We honor the courage shown by many that day and the work that we are doing at TSA every day. We pause each 9/11 to recommit ourselves to our mission and proclaim, "Not on my watch." It is not a claim we take lightly, and is a promise we make to the American people. So just think about that. That's a commitment and a contract, an oral contract that we make to not just the American people, but all the people in our transportation system. This is a country that it's a very significant international destination, and we're here to make sure that everyone operating in our transportation system is safe and secure. Today, we know the mission continues. While the threats have changed in that they're more dynamic, diverse, and challenging, our dedication to the mission remains. Things may change because all things change, but we at TSA will remember who we were, embrace who we are, and celebrate who we will be. TSA was born in the wake of the attacks, and we have grown as an agency. And if you just think of today in the United States, it takes a very long time to get legislation passed that would establish an agency like this one. When we were established, President George W. Bush signed the law called the Aviation and Transportation Security Act of 2001 at Reagan Airport on November 19th of 2001. So just think of how quickly our nation rallied together, worked together to make sure that, as I said at the very beginning, that a 9/11 attack never occurred, any terrorist attack on our transportation system never occurred again. We were born in the wake of those attacks, and we've certainly grown as an agency. Our responsibilities have expanded into the surface transportation sector, growing occurrences of cyber threats and unmanned aviation systems. We have forged more and more partnerships in this fight against terror. These are partnerships that are essential to securing our nation's transportation systems. I had an opportunity yesterday to talk to many of our partners in the aviation sector. And one of the things, I emphasized two things to them at the very end. One was, and I basically said, I think we would all agree that if we had to pick two things that were the most important to us going forward, these two would be the things we'd pick. The first one was invest in our people. And our people, I meant me investing in the men and women of TSA, and somebody who works at, let's say, American Airlines, United Airlines, Dulles International Airport, that airport leadership invests in their people. So that was the first thing, and most important for me, to invest in people. The second was to invest in partnerships. All the officers sitting here, all the air marshals that are in the audience, many of us who have traveled around our system know that we do not provide security all by ourselves. Our security, as I said in the beginning, is multi-layered, and some of those layers are our partners, and we rely on them significantly for the work that we do. I'm committed to making sure that you've got the support you need. As I said, I think you're an amazing workforce. Whether you are a TSO, a FAM, or one of the thousands of TSA employees, in any role in our agency, your work matters. And I would just like everybody to think about that, is no matter what you're doing, and no matter how close to the front line or far from the front line you might be, everything you do, everything I do, is to support our frontline operations, and the work is significantly important. In closing, as we reflect on today, we remember where we were 21 years ago. Our nation's security was more fragile than anyone could have imagined. Today, we are stronger. It was not easy, but we were able to build it due to your resolve and your hard work. I am proud of the men and women of TSA. Each and every day, you're helping to make the nation safer. The agency is better because of you and your work. Today, we remember the fallen. We remember the road on how we got here. And on this day, we say, never again, not on my watch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your reflections and words of inspiration. Now, please join me in welcoming TSO Brooke Cash from Dulles International Airport, who will lead us in our recommitment oath.
Forged on an anvil of cruel necessity and bloodshed innocently, TSA was built urgently in a time of war to preserve peace. From all walks of life, we came forward to serve at an agency built of innovation, patriotism, and steady virtue. We are firm in our resolve to not yield to terror. Driven by a noble and critical mission, I proudly serve with integrity and professionalism to protect my family, community, and fellow citizens. Today, I recommit myself to my role in safeguarding my country and reaffirm my promise to the American people, not on my watch.
TSO Cash, thank you. At this time, please rise as the IED Honor Guard retires the colors.
Right shoulder, pump. Ready, cut. Color sign. March. Left, 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 right. Left, left. Hard, time, march. Left, left. Colors, hold. Right, face. Retrieve, colors. Ready, up. Color sign. March. Left, 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 right. Left, 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 right. Left, 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 right.
Thank you once again to our colleagues from IED for their contributions to today's event. The Honor Guard includes STSO IA Lema, LTSO Judy Kim, TSO G Lee, TSO Rafael Gonzalez, TSO Sostenes Cuello, TSO Larry Douglas, STSO John Robinson, and STSO Collins Ijeman. And thank you to everyone for joining us today, both virtually and in person. This concludes our program.